This incident occurred in 2019. I was living in northern Ontario, Canada, in a semi-rural area at the time, around 5 p.m., eagerly awaiting my son's visit. I had joint custody agreement with his mother. I had a standard photo of what was by no means a scary dog, but he did his job by barking immediately whenever someone walked on the street, let alone entered our property. So when he started barking, I naturally assumed my ex was pulled in the driveway with my son, and I walked out to greet them. Only it wasn't their car, but a middle-aged man who looked disheveled with long, unkempt gray hair and eyes as big as saucers creeping around my house. When he saw me, I could tell he was nervous as he stammered, giving you a description. I'm a somewhat intimidating-looking guy. I have long hair and a thick beard. I have a friend who says I look like a serial killer. Hence my nickname is Miller the Serial. The man started to stutter and said, "Oh, I just wanted to know if you need any pruning done. I can do it for you even though it's late in the season. I'm just trying to make some extra money." I politely declined, and thankfully the man who dropped off my ex soon arrived with my son and informed me he saw a man with me quote-unquote edging out, and suggested I keep our child indoors at least for the time being. Of course I did that, although I didn't get that additional information. I have a visual impairment, so I can't see his fidgety movements from a distance, but what I could see of him gave me chills. I called the police and advised them to be cautious. I also posted my encounter on a local caring Facebook group, and when I did, I was told I wasn't the only person who ever met the gardener. That's what they called him. I shuddered to think how different the circumstances would have been if my son met him before I did. I hope this person is apprehended and arrested, given mental health support, or assisted in finding honest employment. In an update on the gardener, it turns out this person is part of a gang that does break-ins, and around my neighborhood the gang sends one person to scout for potential targets. Then they send a group to break into the house. I'm pleased to report they didn't show up here, and I believe it's because of my Vigilant Poodle's very loud bark. This happened just 2 weeks ago when we moved into our new house, so I remember everything very clearly. We bought the house at a very cheap price from a guy named Jake. My brother and I thought he was somewhat creepy, but we didn't care. Our new house has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, kitchen, and a basement. From the start, the basement gave me chills because of the awful smell. We all noticed it and wanted to check it out, but we decided not to, and just hoped the smell would go away on its own. A few hours passed and I was about to go to sleep when suddenly I heard a bang from the basement. I wanted to check it out, so I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I opened the basement door and waited about 10 seconds before going down. As I was descending the stairs, I suddenly realized the banging noise had completely stopped, so now I was ready to panic. I made a quick decision and hurried back to my room. I went to sleep and continued my day the next day with no more banging noises until the following night. Now I was almost panicking again, just like last time. I wanted to check it out. So I left my room just as I closed my bedroom door. My brother came out of his room too, because he also heard the banging noise. I was glad he heard it too, just like me. Some kind of thought crossed my mind, and I started to go crazy. Hearing something, even though I might not be too scary hearing things that aren't there, than going through what we experienced that night. This time, both of us went to the basement. On our way down the stairs, the banging noise continued. When we reached the bottom of the stairs, the first thing we noticed was a door that we never knew existed. It was quite hard to see because its color was almost the same as the wall, and it blended in quite well. We decided to open the door and see what was behind it. We searched for a light switch, but it turned out there was no light in the room. So we took out our phones and turned on the flashlight. And what we found disturbingly on the floor, we found 2 bodies. Both of us wanted to scream, but there was something blocking us from doing so. We were so focused that we never realized the banging had stopped until we heard heavy breathing from behind us. We turned around and saw a grown man wearing a mask, and he was holding a knife. My brother and I wasted no time at all and bolted out of there as fast as we could. We managed to escape from him and lock the door behind us, then locking it in the basement. We woke up our parents and told them everything. They called the police and they arrived shortly after. Just 5 minutes later, there were 2 police cars and 3 officers accompanying them to the basement. And when we finally got there, we saw that the man had taken off his mask. It was Jake, the guy who lived in the house before us, who sold the house to us. One of the police officers took Jake and we showed the bodies to the other 2 officers. We later found out that Jake told the police that the people he killed were his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend, and that he planned to leave their bodies in the basement and therefore might blame us for it. The scariest thing for me about this situation is how he got into his house and what else he would do. We have so many unanswered questions that we might never get answers to because Jake was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison as far as I know. He might even get a life sentence, hopefully, without the possibility of parole. I don't think we need people like him roaming the society as far as I'm concerned. They might also give him the death penalty. My family and I will never forget this. James certainly hurt us all for life. Before I delve into this story, I should explain that this happened in August 2022. My name is Jaden, and I'm 14 years old. In the final months of summer, I went camping with my girlfriend Leah and my aunt, which we planned to do because before summer started. We traveled to a locally known campsite, where we would stay in a trailer owned by my aunt's husband on the left side. Around 6 p.m., as the journey took about an hour and a half, and because the campsite was far from our location. Of course, upon arrival, we parked in the parking lot outside the forest area and brought our tent, snacks, and other camping necessities. The trailer was located in a spacious clearing within the forest, and it was actually a very nice trailer. It's relatively new, spacious, and has a mini living room, kitchen, bathroom, and even 3 bedrooms. The sun would shine brightly in the open field, creating a beautiful scenery for photos on the first day. Everything went normal. My girlfriend and I spent a lot of time watching TV. My aunt took photos of the area and us, and we enjoyed a very pleasant dinner because my aunt is a great cook. Everything went downhill quickly on the second day, even though it was overcast but not raining, which we were grateful for because there were hardly any animals roaming around the area. I saw a deer and maybe some birds, but that's it. But you might have guessed there might be predators in the area. Fast forward to the evening, we sat on the bank of the river, which was a 30-second walk from our trailer, my aunt said. A story that I don't quite remember when suddenly we heard some crackling of wood and rustling of leaves from across the river. "Is that a bear?" Leah asked. I heard a hint of fear in her voice when she said she was afraid of bears, but my butt said her voice was too soft to be heard. A bear. So I thought it might be a deer or something. That's when we heard the most terrifying scream we've ever heard, coming from across the river. The hair on the back of my neck stood up and Leah jumped back in. Fear. The scream was so terrifying that it made my brain itch like I could never describe it so humanly but very animal-like at the same time. The 3 of us got out of there and ran back to the trailer, all the while hearing screams coming from the river as we ran. We quickly gathered our belongings, put them in the large backpacks we brought, and ran back to the car when we got out of the forest. We jumped into the car, locked the doors, and took a deep breath. What Leah shouted, none of us could start to explain what we had just heard. We disagreed to go home and forget all that had happened. We drove out of the parking lot and drove home. I decided to look into the forest for the last time as we were driving, and I swear to you, seeing a tall black bird figure with glowing white eyes just staring out the edge of the tree line and staring right at me shook me to the core, and I still couldn't forget that image because as of now, October 18th as I write this, and I still haven't told my girlfriend or even my aunt about it what I saw. My aunt's husband went to the trailer to see what he could find, and he found his trailer practically in ruins. I don't believe in skinwalkers or paranormal or anything, but what happened at the campsite really changed my mind a little about some things.